expect Sony to have their own version of it, maybe, or something. But have they confirmed anything like that to you? VRS being available on the PlayStation 5, is that a thing? Do you know?
I cannot comment on that.
Today we are covering a really cool interview that I actually had the pleasure of being part of, thanks to GameOnDaily.com. I will link this down below. Please check them out. If you missed my last video, I did talk about Xbox's game development kits, GDK, actually being behind on some tools. It might explain some performance issues, some glitches, some lack of optimization. In fact, I don't think any console this year is going to be optimized for very well, but covering that at least a little bit so far, and I plan to do more. This developer does cover, well, the future and how this box is going to get better. He told us why Xbox Series X is going to be substantially more powerful as time goes on, and even teased hardware accelerated physics using the ray tracing silicon in the box. I asked him a few questions about PlayStation 5 as well. I found those answers entertaining. I thought it was a great interview. Again, let's get into it. The equivalency, right, in a very specific scenario of 13 teraflops with the software ray tracing on top of the 12, like they don't affect each other. That's how they put it. I was wondering, you could either slap that into ray tracing like Dirt 5 is going to do, or games like Watch Dogs have decided to do. But do you see a world where maybe some developers can use that compute, right, on other things, if they found a way to do that, like maybe hardware accelerated physics of some kind or something like that, something really neat?
So I think the common misconception about ray tracing hardware is that you're only going to use it for ray traced graphics.
Mm-hmm.
And so your question's really great. How about I want to, I don't know, do something really crazy, like have a crowd of 1 million people, but I want to have it so that they all bump into each other properly.
Ooh.
How could I do that? I want to drive a car into that many people. That's, you know.
That's a tech demo you got to show us.
I hope that's not a gift. That's, how would I go about doing that? Is there something I can do with ray tracing to be able to do that? As well as using it for visibility lookup. So you could build like a tree structure to work out what things should be visible from where you are within the world. Typically that's a CPU task, but if I've got some units sitting around doing nothing, maybe I could use it for that. Don't know. Maybe I could use it for sound and work out where I want ambisonic sounds to play. There's loads of different ways in which you could use ray tracing hardware. It doesn't have to be ray traced shadows and ray traced.
That's Dirt 5's technical director. Yes, the guy knows exactly what he's talking about, and I found that extremely interesting, especially considering I had speculated on this possibility about 1.5 years, 2 years ago regarding next-gen systems, right? Silicon in the box leveraged to accelerate physics. Yes, kind of like PhysX on NVIDIA cards, but, you know, maybe to a lesser degree considering its console. I don't really know, but I find it extremely fascinating, exciting. You know, this is one of the craziest things. But hey, that's just one aspect. We got plenty more questions regarding Xbox Series X, and we even find out some pretty ridiculous information about the CPU of Xbox Series X. But we've really got to start with something that is very, very important. Pandemic, global situation. There are a lot of things happening right now that developers cannot control. This includes their own development time, their optimization, their loss of polish on titles. It explains a ton of glitches on games across the board this holiday that everybody is reporting from all platforms. Again, if you think they optimized these titles this holiday when they are not even running correctly, at least in some cases, then that's odd logic to me. The last several months of development are crucial for performance on new consoles, and unfortunately Xbox's development kits were not out there quite as fast as the others. On top of tools that are a little bit behind, on top of not really leveraging a lot of the features of the box, long story short, did not have time to really optimize like they probably wish they would have. It's a pandemic, and I don't think there's any game day one that's gonna, you know, can say, hey, we've gotten 100 billion% of performance out of the boxes and everything's perfect, you know, because of everything that's going on. I mean, again, it runs really well from my experience right now.
Thank you. I think there is a lot of stuff left on the table. So to talk about next gen, Dirt 5 is, I'm pleased with it. We got obviously we had like 18 months to make the game. We did not have PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlett dev kits at that point when we started. So halfway through development, you start getting early prototypes of hardware. They have bugs, they have flaws, things don't work, they crash a lot, they don't have all of the performance yet. And so very near the end, you start getting the close to final prototypes. So to think that you would be able to squeeze the box of everything that it could possibly do it's just not feasible to be able to do for launch day.
Yeah.
But looking at the architecture of what these things can do, it's going to be a lot of fun in the next couple of years. It's going to be really interesting.
And there are tools on top of that, correct? So I mean, as these SDKs update, these performance and I'm hearing behind the scenes and have been here for a little bit that Xbox's SDKs are really early. And there's a lot more performance from the box that's sitting in your house right now to basically be available to developers over the next year, on top of a lot of the stuff like velocity and VRS and machine learning, all this other stuff they can do.
So I think that for us, the big challenge is figuring out how do you make use of this architecture within your game engine itself. I think that one of the things that we've not scaled well in the last couple of months was just the sheer number of systems that we had to deal with.
So again, another developer talking about how hard it is to ship a game during a pandemic, and I cannot believe the amount of people that are not only not thinking about this at all, how many hours these guys are really pushing, how hard they're working, how stressed they are, optimization, how much are they getting out of the hardware. I have much more on David in this video talking about how they literally did not get everything out of this thing. They are still optimizing it. They got all this stuff, the features that might come, the things they can do, including information on the SSD of the box, which he says is even faster than what Microsoft are claiming, at least in a way. And there's a lot here. I really encourage you guys to check out the full video on GameOnDaily.com as well. I'll link that down below because he did say a lot of little cool things that I don't have time to cover here. These videos take a long time to edit and render. But before I go back to what they're doing with Dirt and how they're optimized it, and they've already made it look better since the Digital Foundry build. So much on how they're going to actually leverage next gen. There's so much cool stuff here. I wanted to go into the CPU of Series X for those that might want to hear some technical stuff. You might be surprised by this next bit.
So CPU times on Dirt 5 on Series X hover around 5 milliseconds, something like that. It only needs to be 8.3 for 120 FPS. I've got loads of room left on the CPU Series X.
So even at 120, you're not bottlenecked, huh?
Absolutely not on the CPU, not bottlenecked at all. GPU, we've got some optimizing to do. We have to learn more about how our RDNA GPUs work. And spend some time doing that, and that just unfortunately takes time.
So once again, he does reiterate that they need more time to learn these systems, not only the RDNA 2 architecture, but really Series X, especially the custom features that are involved. Both next generation consoles are going to be pretty awesome, and they both have their own custom things, but when it comes down to it, Microsoft's Xbox Series X does have more things that they may have to spend time learning. Well, at least if they want to see the deltas I've been talking about from the box. VRS, which Dirt 5 does actually use, velocity, machine learning, there's so much stuff that goes into how these boxes are custom. But really, I'd like to know what you guys think about that CPU. The fact that even at 120 frames per second, remember, last generation consoles struggled to do 30 FPS on a lot of games. Racers would go up to 60 and still drop. These consoles are running 120 plus, and they could do even more according to this developer. That's very, very impressive. You've got so much capability here. And as I'll show later in the video, he really sounds excited about what they can do if they had these boxes longer.
One technical director and a squeaky guy with a girl's voice with a unique technique. Wow. Thank you, Nano. Question for David. I think we've talked about the full RDNA 2 suite, but he does ask, will a patch come later on to deal with the other bits that you haven't?
I think he's talking velocity architecture specifically.
Is he velocity? Oh yeah, velocity. Sorry.
I guess I will say we look at all of these things all of the time. We're not going to be. I can't promise which stuff is going to come in future patches.
Sure.
Because we have to balance loads of different things. in terms of like particularly fast storage on Series X, I think that hardware is great. And I looked at the speed that we could get from it, as I said earlier, like 10 gigabytes in 2 seconds. In my personal early tests, it may well be able to do way better than that. And that was without the compression in the hardware. That was just raw.
So why are Microsoft rating it at 2.5 gig and compressed up to almost 5? Is that through a memory multiplier effect of velocity? Was that running something through velocity?
So the way to get the most out of is to make many requests at once. So that then gives some challenges to how you lay out your data. You need to know where are they going to go in memory, and what is it that you need before you ask for it.
So optimization then, which is often the case, or always the case rather, with any kind of hardware, it is just a shell capable of nothing unless these developers tell it what to do. Now the more capable that hardware, the better for our dollar, right? But again, it all has to do with optimization. The developer will tell it what to do or put as much time and resources as they want to into it, and that's what you're going to get. When it comes down to it, software really builds out the box. Software has to catch up to the capabilities of the box, as he's explained already in this video. And ultimately, software will control how good these games end up looking on the box. Imagine getting Red Dead Redemption 2 on day one of Xbox One, or even Metro Exodus, Doom Eternal. Just not possible. But again, if you want to know more about them optimizing dirt and how quickly they optimized dirt and upgraded the settings, at least on Xbox Series X, I did not ask about the PlayStation version. I'm sure it's the case. He does speak on how they optimized their game for each car and the track, which I found extremely fascinating. Again, I've been playing the game for like several weeks, and throughout that period, there have been several patches, right? Because you guys are updating the builds. And now there's an image quality mode and a resolution mode.
That's right. If you want something that looks really pretty, we didn't take anything away from the Digital Foundry build. Because what we did was said, the mode that the Digital Foundry saw that was called quality, we optimized it so that we didn't need the middle one. So we threw that away and renamed what they had was quality to resolution. The new quality mode, we went in, optimized some more, turned some more things up to 11.
So in a few weeks, you've gone in and optimized and added more settings and just turned it into 2 modes there.
Yep. Yeah. So we're continuing to optimize now. I was just on reset area just before we started, because someone was asking about a performance issue on PS5, and I'm saying, I'm sorry about that, first of all.
Because you're the lead technical guy, all the work you've done in the base game will kind of already pay dividends in the expansion.
Oh, yeah. So in terms of performance, we lock down things like budgets. So we know exactly how much a car should take out of a frame. So then when an artist makes a new car, we can run it through our tests and we can say whether it's within budget or not. And if it breaks the budget, we just send it back and say, you need to optimize this car. And the same goes to the tracks. We have like an AI program that runs a camera around the track. That will generate a heat map for us to tell us the frame rate on a particular console. Then the heat map gets given to the artists to tell them these are the problem areas where you need to really hone your frame rate. You need to look at what's going on here. Is it that your materials are too expensive? You've got too many verts? Maybe you've got something like this really beautiful vista and it looks really great to the artist, but the frame rate is just bombing out. And so what are we going to do to deliver that vision within that frame time?
I thought that was really interesting how they do generate a heat map and they actually measure the benchmark in real time, and they have their artists go back and optimize, aka take things away or move things around. Also the fact that they had already upgraded the settings for Dirt 5 since all of the previews, right? And I had suggested to them on the podcast, which I didn't show here, hey, max everything out, put it to ultra if you can, or at least provide a mode with that at 60 FPS at the highest resolution possible. I've always talked about on this channel, best settings possible at 60 FPS, then scale up the resolution, and I think developers can't go wrong with that option. Now, one of the final questions I'll show here is regarding smart delivery, the difference between smart delivery and perhaps, the way developers might decide to add free updates to certain games that don't make you pay and the ones that use smart delivery that don't make you pay. Things like that. Again, there were a ton of questions like that throughout the show. Could not include them all. Really, it was very, very interesting, very enjoyable, very educational.
The way you built games for Xbox previously was using a thing called the XDK, which is the development kit. And then in order to ship an Xbox Series XS game, you have to use what's called GDK.
Mm-hmm.
And GDK games can also run, you can also make your game on Xbox One using GDK. And when just around the time we started the 5, Microsoft were telling us, look, you know, we can't get you dev kits yet for Xbox Series X, but GDK is a thing and that will run on Xbox One, so maybe you should look at using that. And it was very early, and it was, you know, it had problems because it was early, but it's really an entirely new software stack for Xbox. That's just how it works for smart delivery, where you make the GDK game, you have to compile once for Xbox One, and then you compile again for Series X and S, and you produce two ISOs. They're not ISOs, but you know, so we don't have different code paths apart from in very, very extreme circumstances for Xbox One. It was honestly, it was actually pretty easy. Yeah,
it's cool. It helps you manage those different versions that scale, and they've incorporated the older console in there too, right? So that's really convenient.
Yeah, it is, and I think it really, I think you have to think really broadly about, well, what are the implications of doing
And that's where I'll cut it. Please check out the original source down below, GameOnDaily.com. Fantastic website. I use it myself. It's up there, man. It's really, really good. You guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Of course, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. I know there's a lot of interview stuff going on right now, but having been in this one myself, especially, I had to put this in here, and I didn't even include the part where he talked about Smart Shift on the PS5. Yes, Smart Shift is exactly what you think it is, and he does speak on, you know, hey, depends on the developer, right? So again, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe if you have not. Tell a friend, and you know, thank you so much for what you do. Honestly, if you were unable to get a Series X, you know, hang in there. You know, at the end of the day, this thing is in demand. It really is, and it really is a blast to play. Load times are pretty much gone. I mean, it's one of those things where, as great as it is today, and this does include every single thing about the box, it's only going to get better. So again, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe if you have not. Thanks to the patrons and channel members that support what I do. Honestly, it means a lot to me. I'm going to also put RDX on the podcast services in January. So thank you again. Thanks for those that messaged me. Shout out to all you guys. I'm Dealer. I'm out.